More to the broadcast. This is Inside Politics. There was drama in Kisii Monday when legislator Simba Arati of Dagoretti North and his South Mugirango counterpart Sylvanus Osoro fought on the podium during a funeral service attended by Deputy President William Ruto and ODM leader Raila Odinga. We have been reporting on intolerance among leaders rising, and yesterday the ugly head of political intolerance reared its ugly head once again when chaos erupted at a burial ceremony in Matungu in the county of Kakamega after supporters of two candidates in the March 4th by-election clashed. The skirmishes occurred after the ODM candidate, apparently Dave, arrived in the company of his supporters who forcibly entered the area designated for politicians and the church. Let's get more from KTN's Willie Lusige.
It was the entry of ODM candidate in Matungu by-election, David Were, that marked the genesis of chaos with the ANC candidate Peter Nabulindo's supporters. The chaos started when Were's supporters entered the area designated for politicians and the church. The move angered supporters of Amani National Congress ANC candidate Peter Nabulindo, who started engaging them physically. The rising temperatures forced the church and the family members of the deceased to hurriedly bury their mother. The burial ceremony was for the late Serafini Pasi, the mother of a local politician, Atieno Pasi. While the family was at the gravesite, the politicians and their supporters were engaging each other in the field. Were, who enjoys the support of Kakamega Governor Wycliffe Oparanya, had his team shielded by the county reinforcement officers. The officers finally managed to throw out of the compound the rude youths. All this time as Nabulindo and Were sat patiently on the same podium. Speaking at another function in Navaholo constituency, ANC party leader Musalia Mudavadi accused some leaders from outside Western region of fueling division.
Mambo ya tukifika pale kuna watu wanaingia kwa Waluya, wanaambia Mluya huyu, wewe simama, wewe simama, wewe simama, wewe simama.
Speaking while attending the burial ceremony of Mzee Justus Ndombi, Mudavadi said some individuals were keen to divide the Luya community ahead of the 2022 general election.
Yani wanataka kwa eneo ya Western Kenya tusimamishe wengi, na kule kwingine hawafanyi hivyo, lakini hapa wanaambia kila mtu Ibunyara, Ibunyara.
Speakers openly backing the push for rotational presidency.
Ninaomba kwa moyo mkunjufu, Mheshimiwa Wetangula amekubali kusaidia Mheshimiwa Musalia Mudavadi. Tuna ndume moja tu kutoka Western.
Kama kweli, kama jamii ya Waluya, kama tunaheshimu Musalia Mudavadi ambaye hapendi ukabila, tusicheze siasa ukabila, ila tumuombe ndugu yetu atoke nje, atafute marafiki, washikane.
Mudavadi has called on the Mulembe nation to start investing in leadership ahead of the 2022. ANC party leader Musalia Mudavadi is now pointing his finger on other political leaders from other regions, that they are the one who are behind the political differences within the Western region. Willie Lusige, KTN News, Nambacha, Navaholo.
All right, that was in Matungu yesterday. 5 days earlier, there was that chaos in Kisii. 2 weeks ago, we saw the one pitting Rashid Echesa versus Ayub Savula. I mean, the examples are too many. Dismas, let's begin from where Willie Lusige left. Musalia Mudavadi saying that politicians from other regions, like in their vote hunt, are the ones who are going there to start these political fires. Do you agree?
Yes, I agree with him. And these are the politicians who radicalize the people. And as you heard Kalonzo Musyoka mentioned, there are some of these politicians, very powerful politicians in Kenya, have radicalized all and sundry, now including members of the National Assembly, that they can actually fight at a funeral. I come from that part of the world in Western Kenya, where we fear the dead, that even when you see a coffin, you approach with caution. And this is an anthropological issue. But now when you have two members of the National Assembly engaged in a physical altercation, it's unacceptable. Now, what even is saddening is that their party leaders or their masters, when they got the opportunity to speak, they did not condemn those toxic speeches. Because in my view, Honorable Osoro, I'm not sure whether he's honorable anymore, and Honorable Simba Arati, I'm also not sure whether he's honorable anymore, made very toxic speeches that could easily spark tribal violence. But when Raila Odinga got the opportunity to speak, he did not condemn what Simba Arati said. And when the Honorable William Samoei Ruto got the opportunity to speak, he did not condemn what Osoro said. You know, that's the first level, that they've given very toxic speeches, and as always, they're just anchored on lies and deceit. And then now for Osoro, having given his toxic speech and people have listened, and the Simba Arati is doing the same, where does he get the alacrity from? Where does he get the guts from to get from his seat, shouting from where the deputy president is seated, walk towards the microphone, and he wants to engage in violence? And you saw the same thing happened with nominated Senator Omanga. She wanted to do the same. In fact, we should give Governor Ongwae credit that he was able to manage the situation, because it would have degenerated and caused violence. So in my view, we shouldn't even be looking at Simba Arati, we shouldn't be looking at Osoro, we should be looking at their leaders, their masters, who in a very strange and unacceptable manner are promoting that kind of toxic politics. Because there was a very valid expectation that both Ruto and Raila would condemn those toxic speeches in the strongest terms possible. But what did they do? They probably gave themselves, gave those two leaders a pat on the back after the funeral.
All right. Mark Bichachi, let me ask you, let me take Dismas's point. The fact that he's blaming their masters, their political masters, and we've heard it from Musalia Mudavadi. We had Kalonzo Musyoka in Kabarak saying that it is Ruto who had radicalized even MPs to fight on the podiums of funerals. But isn't that really abdicating responsibility? These are grown-up human beings. They are elected members of parliament. Don't you think that doing that will just make excuses for them and really not deal with this issue?
You know, Ben, this is the funniest thing about our country. Number one, we have Kenyans who were very much happy with either the attack on Osoro or the attack on Simba Arati. There are people on Omanga's side. You know, it's almost like we're watching WWE wrestling and John Cena and Undertaker are fighting, and we are choosing sides for pure entertainment. Now, the problem with this pure entertainment approach to such vitriol, to such acts of violence, is that slowly but surely it begins to affect us on the ground. It begins to affect us in our day-to-day lives. Now, the unfortunate thing is our politicians in general are eloquent in division. They're eloquent in us versus them. They're eloquent in driving wedges, be it by tribe, religion, or of late social and economic class. And by that I mean the hustler versus dynasty narratives. All of these narratives are things that both William Ruto and the Right Honorable Raila Odinga are fluent in. So when they see Osoro and Simba Arati acting like the way they are simply seeing their scions, you know, things that have been cut from the same cloth, acting the same way. And that is why we need post-haste to, number one, change our society, which is why I'm one of the few people who supports the NCIC in as far as going beyond prosecution to actually shame and name the people who are involved in such activities. They should be ashamed of themselves. Just the same way I have actively called someone a prison prefect on this show, because that is what they project themselves to be. We need to call them out as is. But secondly, we need to begin to dial it back. When we clap when Gideon Moi is kept from going somewhere in Nandi, and we assume it's a Nandi problem. When we clap when Raila Odinga is nearly stoned in Githurai, and we are happy. Trust you me, we are simply lighting the fires of this country. And when we are burning is when we will understand why the handshake, and I wish it was a tripartite handshake at this point, where we chose the path of peace and discussed ideas instead of wheelbarrows, Tibi Mtialala, and Wembe Ule, such nonsensical slogans.
Javas Bigambo, where should these politicians individually start taking responsibility?
See, as it was in the times of Martin Luther King Jr., I would say it is with our time, that it's no longer a choice between violence and non-violence. It now seems to be clearer even a choice between non-violence and non-existence. Whatever happened in Kisii, whatever happened in Matungu, by way of the exposition of violence, itself seems to me as an episode plucked out of Thomas Hobbes' State of Nature, where life is short, nasty, and brutish. And this is not something to entertain. In fact, when you look at all this, it also brings to fore one critical issue: the place of political parties as institutions in propagating democracy and entrenchment of progressive democracy in our land. When we see that political leaders fail to condemn or are silent as opposed to condemnation of the acts or omissions of their errant members who are propagating violence, then it also demonstrates one of the weaknesses of political parties as strong institutions in a democracy. You see, it is expected by the way in which political parties act is and its mechanisms and even how it is entrenched in the Constitution, that political parties are supposed to be great institutions that bring the brighter side of our politics and democracy. And so, it was anticipated that Honorable Raila Odinga, Honorable William Ruto, would have chastised members of their parties for acting in the manner they did or failing to act judiciously and honorably as it's expected of them. And now when we see even other institutions such as the NCAC coming up, albeit late in the day, to condemn what these politicians are doing and trying a little bit effort in naming and shaming, it gives a preview of the Orwellian school of thought that postulates or posits that some animals are equal and others are more equal than others. Why is it that when members of the legislature engage in an honorable act, they are seemingly condoned and acts of prosecution are not actually pressed or charges are not pressed against them?
All right.
And NCAC should do much more than this limited naming and shaming, because these leaders are supposed to be the good examples that younger leaders, younger generation can look up to in admiration. Right now, it is very difficult for any young leader in this country to look at politicians in this country and admire or fail to admire and see how the future holds in terms of leadership, because there is no good example to follow.
Hesbon Owila, before we quickly look at what NCIC have been doing, you're a member of parliament. I don't know if you come from Suna East or West. Junet Mohammed, who is also the minority whip in the National Assembly, made some remarks about his political opponent or rival, nominated Senator Isaac Mwaura, and made remarks about his albinism, some remarks that we cannot repeat, we cannot air on TV. And there has been a lot of backlash from Kenyans on social media platforms, especially there's a hashtag Albinism Kenya Speaks. He has got a lot of backlash for that, and he has apologized half-heartedly on social media. What are your views on that?
First of all, let me say that it's honorable for Honorable Junet to have apologized and given his words to Kenyans that he is not happy with what he thinks about people who suffer that kind of disability. And I think it's
let me read the apology, Hesbon, just for the benefit of our viewers. Junet Mohammed says on Twitter, I want to apologize to people born with albinism. My comments in no way reflects my opinions of them as upstanding citizens of our country. And then he goes on and said, my comments were directed at the rotten character of Isaac Mwaura, who exploits his disability for personal gain and incitement of violence. Go on.
Yeah, and I think an apology is a good step to begin this conversation. But when leaders get to the podium, I think emotions sometimes get the better of them, and they say things that they come back to regret, or things that are offensive, and Honorable Junet did just that. But I think broadly, if we situate the issues that Honorable Junet was trying to articulate, which went out of what probably his intentions were, is the character of leadership generally, and the character of leadership who have designate, roles in the society to represent certain interests. And I think most of the leaders have not covered themselves in glory. And Senator Isaac Mwaura, for all intent and purposes, I don't think he has covered himself in any glory as far as a representative of people with disabilities is concerned. As a matter of fact, a lot of what he has done has been to look for his own self-preservative interests. This is a guy who was nominated by Raila Odinga's party to go to parliament. When he realized that he had not built enough clout to contest, he looked for another opportunity to be nominated. And where we are right now, he's not looking for an opportunity to advance the causes of the people he represents. He's looking for an opportunity to be nominated by the Deputy President, William Ruto. And people of this nature should be told the truth without offending the people that they represent. But I think having said that, and I know we are coming back to this conversation, the issue of political intolerance is a big issue. And a lot of these young politicians who are essentially doing things that are not honorable at the behest of their masters or to please their masters need to read a bit of history. I mean, Raila Odinga and some of the young Turks of the 1990s have been there, they did that. They just need to ask themselves, to what extent did they distinguish themselves with their youthful agility, dynamism, to serve the interest of Kenyans? I remember immediately after the 1992 multi-party election, Moi coerced a number of political, opposition MPs to resign, and some were challenged through by-elections. And some were very controversial in the way they were executed. One was in Migori, and then I remember Professor Rashid Mzee in Kisauni, who was challenged by, the late Honorable Karisa Maitha. Now, the way the Young Turks, irrespective of where they came from, the Young Turks who were both in Ford Kenya and Ford Asili and other political parties, descended there, and ferociously worked to ensure that Professor Rashid Mzee won that seat against the unfair nullification of that election in favor of the late Karisa Maitha.
All right.
Was distinctive in itself, and if these people can use their energy to serve the interest of the public, I think it would be very easy for them to make their masters achieve their political end.
All right, let's very quickly talk about NCIC. Dismas. I talked earlier in the week to the chairman of the NCIC, Dr. Samuel Kobia, and he said, and the following day made true of those words, starting a name, a list of shame every month, which will have some consequences, but NCIC do not have prosecutorial powers. How much of an impact would they have on matters to do with hate and incitement?
That was a very embarrassing aspect from NCIC, that they think by naming and shaming politicians, then they're going to lose their political capital and subsequently lose their political seats. What NCIC doesn't know is, in fact, that list is going to create politicians, very powerful politicians, because there's a good number of voters in Kenya who have been radicalized, and these politicians have been radicalized. So when you elevate this kind of mischief, some people will go back to their constituencies and say that, you see, I've been working hard for you, that even those funny people in Nairobi are naming and shaming me. And, they'll use it as a part of political capital. The only thing which would be very effective for these politicians who are engaged in toxic politics is that if the name and shame translates to pecuniary penalties or penal penalties, that if you've engaged in this kind of toxic politics, that there's going to be a fine of 50 million or 100 million, or you're going to be behind bars for 10 years or 20 years. If you don't have the pecuniary or penal penalties, then the name and shame is a good waste of time.
Mark Bichachi, what's your take on NCIC and their impact to help this country deal with political intolerance and in fact, any other types of, hate and incitement?
Let's put the whole thing into perspective. Number one, NCIC is acting according to the law because the act that establishes the NCIC does allow them to put together a list. But the second thing that is critical is this list is not just about public shaming. It is also about starting the process of barring people who've participated in repeat offenses of causing disturbance of the peace or inciting violence, barring them from running for office. That is number one that we must remember. Number two, the NCIC is also still pursuing legal recourse and investigating these people to be taken to court. Thirdly, and you should be aware that even in Mandera, as we speak, the NCIC is busy creating a peace among the warring clans there. So let's not just take one thing and not situate it in the larger thing. But why do I support a listing of those who've acted shamefully in this country? In this country, let us look at how we created Mike Sonko. Mike Sonko was in Martha Karua's party. We knew he had a record. We let him continue. He became governor. We let him continue. At no point did we stop and ask ourselves, what are we endorsing?
All right.
Babu Owino falls in the same category. As a country, we need to start shaming people, which is why I also have a problem with how we tag conmen in the city of Nairobi and call them city businessmen. Now, if conmen are businessmen, what are we?
All right, thank you for that. Javas, very quickly, is it possible to execute what the NCIC said it would, barring these people from office?
First, incitement is an inchoate crime. And when you look at even the provisions of the Kenya's penal code, you realize that it's possible to prefer charges against members of parliament or any person that is behind this. The Constitution provides that freedom of speech does not constitute and extend to freedom of incitement to cause violence, etc., and that is proper. But when you look at NCIC, I think it is one of those forgotten commissions or commissions that do not really rise up to the occasion of their mandate. Now, right from its constitution, NCIC is a problem. Because yes, while I'm not against matters or leaders that are religiously inclined or religious leaders being in that commission, it is nearly fully constituted by members of the theology or who have got a theological inclination and learning. NCIC need to have a number of legal minds as well in that team as a commissioners, etc., so that they get to understand the weight of these things. NCIC, as presently constituted, and even when you look at the NCIC Act, has got no capacity, for example, to bar anybody from running. But when it works closely with other institutions such as the IEBC and provide its overwhelming evidence to the extent that these leaders can be termed to have been or to be below the threshold of leadership and integrity as required by Chapter 6, amongst other weighty charges, then the IEBC can have the mandate to have these persons forestalled from running for political office. Because also, as NCIC does its work, it must be sure not to encumber the political rights and freedoms of leaders or any other person for that matter. And it must not only look at political leaders. Incitement is not just a question limited to political leaders. Even citizens, even businessmen and women who finance politicians and other activities that lead to these acts of incitement.
You're watching Inside Politics here on KTN News. Thank you for staying with us. Time for one final commercial break. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we shall be letting you have your say, have the final word on what we're discussing today. Be sure to give us a call. Our studio lines have been scrolling at the bottom end of your screen. We shall be talking to you in a while.